So we can all sing together if possible. Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Bihari Jayo Gopi Jana Vallabha Jayo Girivaradhari Jayo Gopi Jana Vallabha Jayo Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Chira Vanachari Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Jai Shri Radha Govinda Shri Gauranga Raj Bhagwan ki Jai Jai Yashoda Damodar Mai ki Jai Jai Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Maharani Sudarshan Dev ki Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai Guru Dev ki Jai Jai Shri Narottam Das Thakur ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 61, verse 40. Tato niruddham sahasuryaya varam ratam samaropya yayukushastalim Ramadayo bhujakta dasharashaha Siddhakhilartha madhushudanashraya Tato aniruddham sahasuryaya varam Ratam samaropaya yayukushastalim Ramadayo bhujakta dasharaha Siddhakhilartha madhushudanashraya Tato aniruddham sahasuryaya varam रथं समारोप्य ययुकुशास्थलिम् रामादयो भुजक्ताद्दशराः सिद्धा किलार्था मधुसूदनाश्रया सिद्धाय लता मधुसूदनाश्रय ततो निरुद्धं सूर्यवारम् रामादय भोज तथा दशरथ सिद्धा I've been told to recite verse 30 to 40. So before we start today's translation and purport, we'll just read the translations from 30 onwards so that we can be on track and the flow is okay. So text 30, I'm just reading the translations. Next, Rukmi accepted a bet of 100,000 coins which Lord Balram won. But Rukmi tried to cheat, declaring, I am the winner. Text 31. Shaking with anger like the ocean on the full moon day, handsome Lord Balram, his naturally reddish eyes, even redder in his fury, accepted a wager of 100 million gold coins. Text 32. Lord Balram fairly won this wager also, but Rukmi again resorted to cheating and declared, I have won. Let these witnesses here say what they say. Just then a voice from the sky declared, Balram has fairly won this wager. Rukmi is surely lying. 34. Urged on by the wicked kings, Rukmi ignored the divine voice. In fact, destiny itself was urging Rukmi on, and thus he ridiculed Lord Balram as follows. You coward, you wander about the forest know nothing about dice. Playing with dice and sporting with arrows are only for kings, not the likes of you. Thus insulted by Rukmi and ridiculed by the kings, Lord Balram was provoked to anger. In the midst of the auspicious wedding ceremony, he raised his club and struck Rukmi dead. The king of Kalinga, who had laughed at Lord Balram and shown his teeth, tried to run away, but the furious lord quickly seized him on his 10th step and knocked out all his teeth. Tormented by Lord Balram's club, the other kings fled in fear, their arms, thighs, and heads broken, and their bodies drenched in blood. When his brother-in-law Rukmi was slain, Lord Krishna neither applauded nor protested. O king, for he feared jeopardizing his affectionate ties with either Rukmini or Balram. We come to today's verse now. Read the word-to-word translation. First, Tatha, then Aniruddham, Anirudh, Saha, together with Suryaya, his bride, Varam, the groom, Ratham, on his chariot, Sampurapaya, placing, Yayu, they went. Kushastalim, to Kushastali, Dwarka. Rama Adhyaya, headed by Lord Balram. Bhojakta, from Bhojakta. Dashraha, the descendants of Dashraha. Siddha, fulfilled. Akhila, all. Artha, whose purposes. Madhusudana, of Lord Krishna. Ashray, under the shelter. Translation and purport by the humble servants of His Divine Grace, Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Then the descendants of Dashraha, headed by Lord Balram, seated Aniruddha and his bride on a fine chariot and set off for from Bhojakta for Dwarka. Having thus taken shelter of Lord Madhusudan, they had fulfilled all their purposes. Purport. Even though Rukmini was very dear to all the Dasharas, her brother Rukmi had constantly opposed and insulted Lord Krishna since Rukmini's wedding. Thus, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains, the associates of Lord Krishna could hardly lament Rukmi's sudden demise. Thus ends the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada to the 10th canto, 61st chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam entitled Lord Balram Says Rukmi. Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Vandeham Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuda Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagala Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Desha Tarini Vancha Kalpatarubhesha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebo Vaishnavebo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So first of all, I'd like to seek blessings of all the assembled Vaishnavas who are present physically here and also online, that we can say something which will take us closer to on our journey back home, and for my own purification I seek your blessings. And I first of all like to also thank the temple for giving us this opportunity to serve in Kartik in this very auspicious month. I also pray and for seeking the ability to also say something along with the opportunity. So today happens to be a very auspicious day. Today is actually the disappearance day of one of our senior most lovable acharyas in our parampara, Srila Narottam Das Thakur. So I thought we could say something about him. Srila Narottam Das Thakur is very dear to all the devotees in the community of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. A few days back, I was in Sridham Mayapur, and I was just taking darshan of the Shringar darshan of Panchatattva was about to open, and the devotees started to sing Shri Krishna Chaitanya Daya Karo More, and it was a very wonderful emotional moment, just singing, all the devotees singing in front of Panchatattva. It was the first day of Kartik, and then after that, I was just at that time trying to meditate on the song, and it is having so much emotions. And then After that, there was Guru Puja, which also is sung by Narottam Das Thakur. So daily we sing prayers, poems written by Srila Narottam Das Thakur. So these songs are having so much potency, so much emotions to transform our hearts. If you hear tapes of Srila Prabhupada ji, whenever he used to sing songs of Srila Narottam Das Thakur, his voice used to get so heavy. And Prabhupada ji explains that these songs of Narottam Das Thakur are more significant in the life of the devotees than even Vedic mantras, which are written in the Vedas, because these songs are intensified with loving feelings for Lord Krishna and his devotees. And I was just thinking, the whole Gaudiya Vaishnav Siddhanta is practically present in these songs of Srila Narottam Das Thakur. And all our acharyas glorified these poems. Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, he is known to make one very famous statement. He says, love of Godhead is very cheap, only 4 rupees. Go to the marketplace, buy Pratna and Prem Bhakti Chandrika. These are the 2 books that Narottam Das Thakur had written. So he says, if you read these books, you can get love of Godhead. And another senior acharya in our line, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he used to always carry these 2 books with him wherever he used to go. So in order to really appreciate, and enter into the sublime nectar of these beautiful poems, I thought we can learn something about the life of Srila Narottam Das Thakur. Today is a very good day where we can remember him and we can offer our gratitude, maybe by reading something about him and trying to imbibe his values. So this is book called Narottam Vilas, which is written by Narahari Chakravarti Das, and I've taken some few incidents and from those books and some lectures which we have heard. So seek blessings of Srila Narottam Das Thakur and all his close devotees and disciples in you. So when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was on his celebrated journey from Jagannath Puri to Sri Vrindavan Dham, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stops at a place called Ramkeli, where he meets Rupa and Sanatan for the first time. And at the outskirts of Ramkeli, he is standing there with his associates, Nityananda Prabhu, Haridas Thakur, Shivas, and all of them. And he's looking into the clear blue waters of the river Padma. And suddenly he gets into a divine ecstasy. An ecstasy which Lord Nityananda had also never seen in his life. He had seen many ecstasies of the Lord, but this was something which was very, very unique. He starts raising his hands. He's trembling. Tears are coming from his eyes. He's looking towards the other side of Padma at the river Kheturi, at the village Kheturi. And he starts to shout, Narottam, 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 Narottam. And he gets into a trance. And then after some time, when he comes to his external consciousness, he tells Nityananda Prabhu that the reason for this manifestation of mine was that very shortly a divine personality is going to appear from the spiritual world. He is my associate, eternal associate, and his name is Narottam. And I will empower him. I will give him all mercy so that he can spread this Harinam Sankirtan through his teachings and through his example. And I will also leave love of Godhead for him in the river Padma. So next day morning, Mahaprabhu goes to take a bath in the river Padma, and he leaves love of Godhead there. And at that time, the river personified comes to Mahaprabhu and says that, how will I understand that Narottam has come? To whom do I give this love of Godhead? So Mahaprabhu says that when Narottam Das Thakur will step into your waters, you will feel such a divine ecstasy. From within your heart, you will feel so happy that you will understand that Narottam has come. And he tells Nityananda Prabhu that it is your responsibility to get Narottam here. Then after some time, Srila Narottam Das Thakur appears. He appears in the village of Kheturi on Marg Purnima in the year mid 1500s, 1520 approximately. And he appears to Krishnananda Datta and Narayani Devi. And they are like landlords, zamindars of so much property. They have so much land, about thousands and thousands of villagers all are working under them. And practically they are called King, like King Krishnananda Datta. That was his title. They were so rich, and Narottam is the only heir, the only son in that empire. And when he appears, he's little darkish complexion, but lotus eyes, beautiful limbs, and the whole village is so happy just to take darshan of Narottam. And then as time passes, it's mentioned that as the moon grew, Srila Narottam Das Thakur grew, and then it came time for his Annaprashan ceremony. And for his Annaprashan ceremony, first the whole village came to see this beautiful samskara which was going to be performed. And his father offers a grain of rice to Narottam. He takes him on his lap and he offers. But somehow Narottam Das Thakur refuses to take that. He goes back, looks at the other side, and he pushes the rice away. So then all the villagers, everyone is disheartened that he was growing up such a nice boy, and why this inauspicious thing has happened. And at that time, a very great Vaishnava comes in the assembly. And that Vaishnava, what he does, he takes the grain of rice and he offers it to Krishna. And then he brings the Mahaprasad and tells his father, now give it to Narottam. And then Narottam not only takes that one grain of rice, but he eats all the rice, which was also there, because all are Mahaprasad. So from that, it was destined that a great devotee has appeared, that he will only have Mahaprasad all his life. And then as life passes on, Narottam is growing, and every day in the evening, somehow by Lord's providence, he gets to hear Katha from a great associate of the Lord, Krishna Das, at the banks of the Padma. Every evening he is hearing, and he talks about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This associate talks about the loving associates of Mahaprabhu, the loving relationships they had. And this is filling Narottam's heart with intensity. He wants to be in that association. From his childhood, he's hearing that. And then when he's about 12 years old, one day Nityananda Prabhu appears in his dream. And he tells him that tomorrow I will, he holds his hand in his dream and says, tomorrow I'll take you, you should take a bath in the river Padma. And Narottam next day goes to the river Padma. And then when he enters the water, he feels a transformation. And when he comes out, he sees Chaitanya Mahaprabhu standing in front of him. And Mahaprabhu embraces him. And with his own tears, he soaks Narottam. And when his tears touch his heart, that's when the love of Godhead Mahaprabhu transforms it into his heart. And not only does he give him the love that Srimati Radharani has, he also gives him the complexion. So Narottam was born darkish, but when that incident happens, he turns molten gold. And he comes out of the river. There's this famous, it's called Prem Tala, and there's a beautiful banyan tree under which he's rolling. And then his family members see this, and they become a little scared that what's happened to him. He comes home, and they keep him under custody, that he's getting too Krishna conscious. Like when for brahmacharis you have experienced these feelings in your lives. So your family members, how careful they become at times. And then Narottam is every day hearing from Krishna Das in the evening, and his separation is increasing. And at the age he gets a dream when he was around 16 years old, when Mahaprabhu comes in his dream. And Mahaprabhu tells him that, hey Narottam, I can't bear to see your crying every day for me. It's time for you to come to Vrindavan now. One of my eternal associates, Loknath Goswami, is waiting for you. You come there. So then Narottam Das Thakur is waiting for the right opportunity. And then his fathers are called by the Nawab Hussain Shah of Bengal for some work. His father and uncle Purushottam Das, they go there. And at that time Narottam Das, he escapes. But then while he is going, his family gets to know that he's escaped. So his parents, they arrange some security guards, police officers to run after him. And they catch Narottam. And they tell Narottam that we have come to take you back home. So Narottam Das, in his humility and his genuine intensity, tells them that, I appreciate what you all are doing, but kindly listen to my side. I'm like a chaste wife who, after the demise of her husband, wants to enter into this fire and perform this sati rite. But my family relatives are stopping me. Similarly, I am this chaste servant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and devotees. And I want to give my life in this burning service. And like the relatives were stopping me, you are also stopping me. Please let me do this. And when they see his demeanor, their heart gets transformed. The security not only blesses him, he gives him some money also. He says, you go, don't worry, I'll take care. And he tells his parents that, I couldn't find Narottam. So then Narottam Das Thakur, like this, he leaves for Vrindavan Dham. And he's a 16-year-old boy, going through forest. At that time, we didn't have Indigo and Air Asia and just, book. He had to walk through the forest. And it was not easy for him. His feet were full of blisters. And he doesn't know how to eat in the forest, he doesn't know the ways of the forest. And then Mahaprabhu himself comes as a Brahmin there and gives him a glass of milk and says that you drink this milk and you will nourish yourself, because he was getting emancipated. So then when Narottam drinks this, he gets his nourishment back. And then he finally reaches Mathura. It is said he reaches Vishram Ghat first. In Bhakti Ratnakar it's mentioned he reaches Vishram Ghat first. And there he takes bath in the holy river Yamuna, goes to the ghat, and he meets a Brahmin there. An old Brahmin is there. And he asks him that, what is the news of Sri Vrindavan? Please tell me, I'm waiting eagerly. So he almost traveled 1500 kilometers. And so this Brahmin says that the news is not very good. Rup and Sanatan have just left the world. And this shatters his heart. Like, I came all the way, and to meet these great Vaishnavas, and they are no more. And in that, deep pain, he goes to sleep. And in his sleep, that time Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami come. And they tell him that, don't worry, our blessings are waiting for you, and they will come through Jiva Goswami. So then Narottam Das Thakur, he finally reaches Vrindavan Dham. He's walking from Mathura to Vrindavan. And there in Vrindavan Dham, he first goes to the Radha Govind temple of Rupa Goswami. And seeing the deities, he's feeling so happy, because he's never seen actually deities, like he's entering a temple. His heart is filled with joy. And at that time, Jiva Goswami comes there. And he runs towards Narottam, and they embrace each other. And it is like a historical moment in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara. And Jiva Goswami then, like a loving father, puts Narottam on his lap, and he's patting his head. And he understands what it had took for Narottam to come here. And then he writes a letter to Srinivas Acharya. And that Srinivas Acharya then comes. And both these eternal associates from the spiritual world are now meeting for the first time in the material world, And it was the next few days, a lot of lovely relationships were formed. And then after that, Jiva Goswami takes Narottam by his hand and makes him meet Loknath Goswami. And Lord Mahaprabhu is orchestrating the whole thing, he's sending Narottam there. He comes in a vision to Loknath Goswami and tells him that tomorrow Narottam Das Thakur is going to come. You prepare, for him, his welcome. So when Loknath Goswami, he's made bhoga, and he's offered it to Radha Vinod ji. And that time Narottam Das comes, and he's meeting his eternal guru, for whom he sings Guru Puja every day, like Janme Janme Guru She. And that time Loknath Goswami embraces him, and they sit together, and they honor the prasad of Radha Vinod. And Narottam, just see his sentiments. He's a 16, 17, 18-year-old boy, like an IYF boy, for example. And if a GBC or a Gurudev is cooking for you and tells you that please come and sit and let's talk and have prasad, what kind of sentiments you'll be going through? It's not, you can imagine, it must be difficult, right? And Narottam at that time is undergoing these sentiments. So he's telling Loknath Goswami little, nervously that I'm feeling very awkward sitting next to you. You are a great acharya, and I don't even have a guru. I'm not even initiated right now, and I'm in white or whatever. So Loknath Goswami tells him that, why do you need a guru? Because Mahaprabhu itself is guiding you. Mahaprabhu comes in your dreams, you have love of Godhead, you don't need a Gurudev. So Narottam is like, no, please don't say that. Without Guru, I don't have any hope in this life or the next life. So please accept me, oh Loknath Maharaj. So Loknath Goswami at that time says that, no, he's now old and Rupa and Sanatan have left. He's thinking that, how can I accept you I can't take this responsibility right now, I'm just doing my bhajan. But generally the rule was at that time that for 1 year you should chant. So he says that for 1 year you chant. I'm not telling you like a Gurudev, but I'm just giving you as a senior instruction that for 1 year you chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, about 2 lakh names every day, and then after that we'll see like that. So about 128 rounds every day Narottam was chanting. And then, and see Narottam Das Thakur's mood also here. He didn't want to push his Gurudev. He was like, not that, I have done the IDC course, you have to initiate me now. It wasn't like that, he kind of respected his sentiments, that okay, this is what my Gurudev wants, let me do this. But heart of hearts, he wanted to serve his Guru Maharaj. So every day he used to listen from his Gurudev, and he used to serve him. Whatever he used to eat were only remnants of Loknath Goswami, whatever came. And then there's this famous story which we all have heard, in our years of Krishna consciousness, that you can imagine Vrindavan at that time. This is about 1500, 1600s, about 700 years, maybe 600, 700 years before, that there was no plumbing system there. In the morning, if anybody had to answer the call of nature, they had to go to the fields or the jungle, and then they used to go to Yamuna to take bath. And Loknath Goswami should do that in the Brahma Muhurat, before Brahma Muhurat time. So he used to do that, and then few days he started observing, and he used to do his activity in one particular area only. So he started to observe that, when my yesterday's, day before yesterday's stuff is not there. Where did it go? And someone is cleaning this place. There is a lota kept here of water nicely. There is a fine sand mountain kept there. So, like for cleaning my hands. So who's doing all this? And so he asked a few devotees, but no one answered. But it was actually Narottam. And Narottam Das Thakur was doing this. And just see his consciousness. I was just thinking that, he was holding something which is considered the most abominable thing in this world. But he's cleaning that with his own hands as if he's cleaning the Lord's altar. And he's not, he didn't publicize it. Just see his consciousness, what kind of attitude he had. And he did not put it on like social media or what at that time, whatever that, 2 a.m. in the morning serving my Gurudev. He was just happy doing that, and he did that for 1 year, every day. Just see his mood, and nobody in Vrindavan knew about it. Only maybe Sri Radha Krishna knew about it, right? Nobody knew. And he didn't want anybody to know also. But somehow, at that time, Loknath Goswami, after 1 year, starts to think that who is doing this? So he actually comes to Narottam, it's mentioned, and he asks him that he's also feeling embarrassed to ask that, are you cleaning? How can you, like he's feeling, it's difficult for him to ask this question. Imagine him doing the activity. So at that time, he's telling Narottam that, what are you doing the whole day? So he's saying, Gurudev, I'm chanting 2 lakh rounds. Okay, that's it. That was the end of the integration. He didn't ask any more questions because he understood that this much only takes so much time. So, but then Loknath Goswami wanted to know what's happening. So one day after passing, instead of going to the Yamuna, he hides behind the bushes. And there he sees a shadow coming, someone cleaning, sitting on his own hands, on knees and doing, and he can't see the person. So Loknath Goswami comes out of the bush and he goes towards him that, who are you? And suddenly Narottam sees Loknath Goswami, his worshipable Gurudev, standing there, and he just offers his prostrated obeisances. And he says, Gurudev, it's me, Narottam. And Loknath Goswami is like, Narottam, why are you doing this? Now you are a prince. You are born in the royal order. Lord Mahaprabhu himself has embraced you, has given you love of Godhead. And why are you doing this? He doesn't have words to say. And at that time, Narottam Das says that, I left all that, Gurudev. All those was external wealth. My real wealth is my service to you. And I was just thinking, for devotees, what is our wealth? There's this famous story when Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj was once going in his car, and there was a grahastha, he offers his dandavats, and it was muddy, it was raining or like that, and his whole dhoti kurta gets dirty with mud, And so Bhakti Siddhanta stops the car, and tells him that, he was kind of impressed, but he just asked him, what are you doing? So he says that, Gurudev, this Dandavat is my only wealth. So if we think about it, as devotees, what do we have? And that before chanting, maybe if we can think on these thoughts, that this holy name is my only wealth, and that will infuse emotions in our heart, and we can chant with affection and attention. So then the story goes on. So after that, and at Loknath Goswami, it said that at that time he didn't initiate him, he accepted him, but he was also so humble that he takes Narottam in front of Radha Vinod, and he tells Radha Vinodji that, with all sincerity, that here is Narottam, accept him. He's your property, he's not my property. So what a great example, that as we grow in our Krishna consciousness, we will get an opportunity to maybe inspire a few people. But we should remember this example, that they are not our property, they are Krishna's property. And actually preaching is just getting people connected to Krishna so that they can get that mercy. So like that, Jiva Goswami then introduces, so then Loknath Goswami wants Narottam to study under Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami at that time was like the foremost acharya, after Rupa and Sanatan had left. And in his class is Srinivas Acharya, is Shamanand Pandit, and what lovely relationships were formed. Actually, Srinivas Acharya was earlier in Vrindavan, and he was like a senior to Narottam Das Thakur. Because if you read, Srinivas Acharya's one disciple was Ramchandra Kaviraj, and he and Narottam were very close. Like in that song Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devaga, he says, Ramchandra Kaviraj Sangha Mange Narottam Das. So they were so close. The Bhakti Ratnakar mentions that people used to call them like Nar Narayan. In the same, like how Nar and Narayan were called in the same breath, like that Narottam and Ramchandra were called. That was their proximity. So then all these devotees come, and these loving relationships are formed. They go on parikramas. It's mentioned that Raghav Pandit actually took them on this beautiful Govardhan parikrama. And Bhakti Ratnakari mentions very elaborately that all these spots which they covered, what is there, and very beautiful, the pastimes of that place. And after that, Jiva Goswami then, they graduate or whatever, like they come as boys and leave as acharyas, in that sense. And they understand the Vaishnava Siddhanta, the Sadachar. They are pure devotees, but from Jiva Goswami they are picking up everything. And then at that time, Jiva Goswami receives a letter from the devotees of Gauranga, Bengal and Orissa and Bangladesh at that time. And they write to him that, Rup and Sanatan have left, and we are feeling intense separation. Please send some devotees. They say Mahaprabhu, his associates have left. We have nobody now here. So send some of your students or some of the books of the Goswamis, so we can nourish ourselves. So now this incident comes in Bhakti Ratnakar. It's beautifully described that how the books of the Goswamis left Vrindavan Dham. This was the first time in the history of our parampara that how the seed of book distribution was planted. It said that Jiva Goswami, he engages a well-wisher from Mathura, and he gives 4 chariots, 4 not carts, and in that carts 4 crates are there, in which all the books of the Goswamis are kept. And each book, even just looking at that, could give you love of Godhead. When they were kept in the crates, they were wooden crates, because if it rained on the way, they were kept there. And all these 4 chariot, 4 carts, and then now it's time for these boys to leave Vrindavan. It's a very emotional moment. If you read that chapter, you might get tears. You'll feel emotional that they come there finally, and now it's time for them to leave. And Jiva Goswami tells them that you take blessings of all the existing Goswamis, the Acharyas. So they go and meet Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami is just having like practically twice in a week. We all know his austerities, we've heard about it, and what kind of a life he led. And when he sees these 3 boys, he stands up, he embraces them, and he tells them that be careful with this service. So somehow he could maybe foresee that these books are going to get stolen in Ban Vishnupur, and that part will come later. So he tells them that be careful. And then at the Radha Govind temple, all of these acharyas meet to bid them farewell. And it's a very emotional moment. All of them are crying. Gopal Bhatt Goswami, Loknath Goswami, Bhogar Goswami, Raghav Pandit. The list it's a long list. And all these three of them are also feeling emotional that we have to go now. And then all the books are shown to all the Brajvasis, all these acharyas. They bless these books, the carts, and they're kept. And then the cart starts to leave. And it's mentioned that Jiva Goswami, he was in such intense feelings at that time, separation, that he actually comes from Vrindavan to Mathura with the carts with them. And now for those of us who recently went to Vrindavan, Mathura to Vrindavan by auto, it takes 1 hour, or it's not that close. And imagine at that time there was no auto rickshaw, so Jiva Goswami is actually walking, or however he went with these carts. And there, when he sees all three of them going, it's like, when Krishna left Vrindavan, how all the gopis felt, how all the Brajvasis came. So at that time, Jiva Goswami is feeling that emotions. He's embracing Srinivas Acharya, he's embracing Narottam Das, and he's crying and crying and he's crying. And they are crying and he's crying. But then this was the flow of current is being passed. This was a historical event in our parampara, that the next line of acharyas are now leaving. The souls are waiting in so many parts for them to come. Like in the relay race, you have the baton passed, like the mashal is given to the next person. So now the Goswamis have given this mashal to these acharyas, and they are going to now leave. And it's a very historical moment in our Gaudiya Vaishnav parampara. And then it's said that Jiva Goswami, then he leaves, and all these acharyas. Then Narottam Das Thakur comes to Kheturi, and it's very detailed. It's mentioned that what happens, the books are stolen, and then Bir Hambir, and that part is a separate part. We can talk about it some other day. But Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivas Acharya says you go to Kheturi, because that is the place where his kingdom was. He was born there. So when he reaches there, he sees, his father is no more, his uncle Purushottam Datta is no more, but his uncle's son, Santosh Datta, he was the king at that time. And he meets his cousin, and they both embrace, and Narottam inspires him, and he takes initiation. And here is a sannyasi, and here is a king or a grahastha, and both have equal sentiments in spreading the mission of Mahaprabhu. And they come together, and thousands and thousands of people come to this path of Krishna consciousness. And then Narottam Das Thakur, he writes a letter to Loknath Goswami, his Gurudev. It's a very emotional letter. He says, it's a very long thing, that how I got Vrindavan, but now I'm out of Vrindavan. And he says that, now so many people have got initiation, so many disciples have come. So his Guru Maharaj is very happy with him. And he says that now it's time for you to install deities in that place. So Srila Narottam Das Thakur then, he installs deities. But where will he get deities? So then there's this lovely story which again comes, that he goes to a merchant, and that merchant, just a minute, sorry, so he goes to this acharya there was this very senior acharya, and he tells Narottam that there is this place here, it's like a granary, and that there is a very deadly snake staying inside there, and somehow these people are not getting grains because of the snake. So then Narottam thinks that, Mare Krishna Rakhe Krishna Mare Ke, that let me just enter, and if Krishna wants me to leave, I'll leave. And he enters, he opens that granary, and instead of the snake, he finds the deity of Gauranga, and he finds the Vishnu Priya along with that. So he gets that deity out, and then he installs, and then Loknath Goswami wanted him to install 6 sets of deities, he writes in the letter. So the names of the deity which he establishes in the temple in Kheturi are Gauranga, Vallabh Kanta, Vraj Mohan, Sri Krishna, Radha Kanta, and Radha Raman, sorry. And he decided that, in this small village of Kheturi, why should we celebrate the beautiful advent of the Lord in form of his Pran Pratishtha? Why not invite all the Vaishnavas? So this is now like about 40-50 years from where Mahaprabhu has left. So Narottam Das Thakur, he plans to organize the first Gaur Purnima festival in Kheturi. And it's given in description in Narottam Vilas in these books that how he does that. He writes with his own handwriting, own hands, he writes invitation cards with beautiful Sanskrit poetry. It said Srinivas Acharya also helps him both write beautiful cards, and he goes personally to invite all these great Vaishnavas. And these great Vaishnavas are spread all over Gaudiya. Sri Khanda, he goes to Kalna, he would have gone to Kharda, all these beautiful places. He meets all these Vaishnavas, he's inviting them, and he's, and all of them are slowly coming. And also at that time, each party had their own little bit way of following Vaishnavism. So how did they reconcile? So at that time, the greatest Acharya who was there, it said, was Sri Janava Mata. So she is the one, who actually reconciles everybody. And it's in great description, this whole event is mentioned, that how he sings, all these Vaishnavas come, and how Santosh Datta, he uses the whole treasury to welcome them with boats and arrangements for so many devotees. And all the Vaishnavas all over Gaudiya Desh are coming. And what an event that would have been. Just imagine, if we had a yatra where all devotees of ISKCON came, it would have been all over the world. How glorious. The yatra committee would have a bad time, but apart from that, it would have been glorious. So anyway, so it was just, it was such a beautiful event, that the deities are installed, and they tell Srinivas Acharya that you lead the first Abhishek, you do the first Abhishek. And Srinivas Acharya, before doing it, he goes to Mother Janava, he takes her blessings, and they perform the Abhishek. And it said that while Narottam was singing in that kirtan, Mahaprabhu appeared, and he dances, and Nityananda is dancing, and Advaita is dancing, and Advaita's son Achyutananda from Shantipur, he's seeing his father is dancing in that kirtan, and Janava Mata is seeing Nityananda Prabhu. After so many years, she's seeing Nityananda Prabhu and seeing him dance, and it's like everyone's again back together, that separation and that union. So this is that union feeling, and this goes on and on and on. And he doesn't want to stop singing, Narottam, because he says, at the moment I stop, maybe Mahaprabhu will leave again. So he's just singing, and all the Vaishnavas are dancing. A beautiful event, and this goes for many days. And so this for further about this festival, we can all read these great books which our Acharyas have given us. It's mentioned in so much detail. And today is the day actually. And then Narottam, after that, he is inspiring so many people. There are so many stories of his disciples. There's a story of Chandrodaya Datta, that once he was a dacoit, and how he inspires him, and this dacoit becomes a devotee, and then he inspires the whole dacoit community. All thieves are taking initiation. And I was just hearing a tape there that I could get the context wrong, but someone could correct me, that one elephant is going to attack him, this Chandrodaya Datta, and just when the elephant is close by, he just remembers Narottam and Ramchandra Kaviraj, and he pulls his trunk out. That was the power of Narottam. Just by remembering his name, the disciple could actually pull the trunk out of the elephant. And so there were so many more such lovely stories in our glorious history of our Gaudiya Siddhanta which we have got. And what a great Acharya, if we can take his blessings. I was reading somewhere, in Murshidabad, near that place, apparently there is that DT which he found, this Gauranga, and that DT is kept in the government. The government have kept it because that DT is 30 kgs in gold. So the government has kept it in its security reserves. And so like this, Narottam inspired the whole village, the whole kingdom of Kheturi, and in today's present day Bangladesh, many of his disciples are there preaching, and we come in this sampradaya. And actually, just to think of it, like all of them, like I was just thinking, like right now I'm thinking that Srinivas Acharya, Narottam Das Thakur, Shamanand Pandit, they all studied under Jiva Goswami, but they had different Gurudevs, like Srinivas Acharya's Gurudev was Gopal Bhatt Goswami, and Narottam Das Thakur's was Loknath Goswami, and Shamanand Pandit was Hriday Chaitanya. And but still all of them such lovingly with that spirit served under Jiva Goswami as humble menial servants. And if you see our parampara, our line, we are like Prabhupada, then Bhakti Siddhanta, then we had Gaur Kishodas Babaji Maharaj, then Bhakti Vinod Thakur, then Jagannadas Babaji Maharaj. And Jagannadas Babaji Maharaj appeared in 1800s, mid 1800s, and it was about 100-year gap. Then the next Acharya we hear about is Baldev Vidyabhushan and Vishwanath Chakravarti. So almost 100 years gap. So I was just reading, I was hearing a tape. So someone asked this question that, why is it, didn't we have any acharyas in between that no one was mentioned? So the senior sannyasi was answering that it's not like that. We had acharyas, but maybe they were like, very pure, but they didn't contribute much to the movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in terms of preaching. So their names is not there. But Baldev Vidyabhushan, I was reading about him, he's actually, he was a disciple of not Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara initially. He was initially by Madhvacharya, he was inspired by that line. But his name is mentioned in our line. Because when he saw Vishwanath Chakravarti, he imbibed the spirit in such a deep way that he became his, his name is there. So our parampara is a parampara of spirit, of shiksha. Diksha is equally important, but shiksha is also equally important. All these shiksha gurus that we have, we are so privileged to have them. And there are different lines, like some lines are like blood lines. Like in Puri, all the Pandas, their only sons can do that service. Or the Goswami temples in Vrindavan, many of them, even like the Nityananda Vansha or the Advaita Vansha, if you can only initiate if you are in that bloodline. They have thousands of followers, but Guru can be only in that line. So anyways, today is a day when Srila Narottam Das Thakur disappeared. Even his disappearance pastime is so wonderful that it's a huge, it'll take a lot of time, but just in brief, Narottam Das goes to the river Ganga. Like how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu merged with Tota Gopinath, how Nityananda Prabhu merged with Bankim Rai. Narottam Das Thakur merged in the river Ganga. That he tells his disciples that you first pour water, he takes them for a bath, and Ganga Narayan Chakravarti and all of them tells them to pour water. And while they're pouring water on Narottam Das Thakur's skin starts to melt in the Ganga. And he's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And it's like the Ganga at that time becomes very turbulent. And here the disciples are crying. So tears are there, and they are putting milk on him, and he's becoming white like milk. And so, and then he finally merges into the river Ganga. And before that also, there was another disappearance lila that happens where he puts himself on a funeral burning fire, and for 3 days he remains unconscious, and then he's about to leave. But the Brahmins that time come and insult him. They start saying that, you are born in a Kayastha family. And Kayastha is considered like a sub-caste, like not a very high caste. So they kind of tell him that because you were born in a Kayastha family, you are getting this death, that 3 days you could not speak, and you are burning in fire now. And his disciples, like, just see the consciousness of the disciples, this Ganga Narayan Chakravarti, he's feeling that these Brahmins are not insulting my Gurudev. You can get angry at that time, but he's feeling compassion for them. He's telling, oh Narottam Das Thakur, please come back and show mercy on this. Do something where these people get your mercy. So it said that after 3 days in that fire, Narottam Das opens his eyes and he comes back, and then he initiates these people. So another Brahmins, all these Brahmins are initiated. So what a personality, huh? How much compassion in his heart he had. And then again then after that he is put in the Mother Ganga, and this his Doodh Samadhi takes, this water is collected. Even in Kheturi right now, there is a place called Doodh Samadhi where they kept that. And also some people say that in Vrindavan, in Radha Vinod temple, near the Samadhi of Loknath Goswami is the Samadhi of Narottam. Some was taken there maybe. So today is a very auspicious day in Kartik. We are hearing about Srila Narottam Das Thakur, a great Acharya in our line. And so it's our great fortune and blessing that we come in this parampara of such great Acharyas. Let's try to read about them and try to imbibe their mood in a very small, even pin drop way. If we can just be the servant of the servant of the servant of their servants, and we can serve in our own small way, in a sincere manner, without any ulterior motives, and with sincerity, with all honesty, then I'm sure Srila Prabhupada will be happy, because this flow of current is coming to us through Srila Prabhupada and all our present day Acharyas. So we might have many Shiksha Gurus, different Diksha Gurus, but like how Jiva Goswami was for all of them, for us Srila Prabhupada is here in Calcutta. What a blessing we are to be in Calcutta, that it's Prabhupada's birthplace, Sri Pada Kshetra, the Lord's pure devotee appeared here. So with this I'd like to conclude, and if there's any questions, if any comments, I hope there's no questions, but any comments devotees can make. If there's any corrections, if I made any mistake, I beg forgiveness. And I hope we could all become, for some time at least, Narottam Das Mahashai conscious for some time today. And thank you everybody. Hare Krishna. If any questions, otherwise we can end. Hare Krishna.